listening to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and more. Here's your host, KickedTripod.
Good morning, Overwatch League fans. This is your Overwatch League daily episode for March 1st, 2018. Today I'm joined by Overwatch writer and analyst Volamel to discuss yesterday's matches. Speaking of yesterday's matches, here's your scoreboard brought to you by patreon.com/OWL Daily Show. For the first match of the week, we saw the Dallas Fuel, who went 2-0 last week against the Shanghai Dragons, and the LA Gladiators go up against the Seoul Dynasty. Unfortunately, the streak would end here as the Seoul Dynasty would defeat the Dallas Fuel 3-1. For the second match of the evening, we saw the LA Valiant take on the San Francisco Shock, Northern California versus Southern California. And while the score may not have looked at, this one was close and ended with a banger.
Dismantle this defense for the Shock. Knocked back. Fate drops on now. And look at this. The Primal Rage. Very, very helpful. But he put to sleep from up above. It's Sleepy to make Fate sleep on the job. But now Nomy's going to be there. Give him a tinkle to wake him back up. And where are the Shock? They got to get there. Nomy playing back around the corner. He couldn't make it to the payload. And Fate's timing was impeccable to return with the Primal Rage. And once again, the North versus Southern California crown goes back to the Valiants.
At the end of the series, the LA Valiant win this one 3-1. For the final match of the evening, we probably saw one of the most one-sided matches yet in Overwatch League. The LA Gladiators taking on the Shanghai Dragons. This one was all Los Angeles as they would win 4-0. I sat down with Volamel to discuss specifically the Seoul versus Dallas game and the Shock versus Valiant game. So let's discuss the Seoul Dynasty versus the Dallas Fuel. And there's one player in particular who's kind of been standing out, not in a good way for Dallas, and that's been HarryHook, who's been kind of struggling, especially on Mercy. What do you think, if anything, or if there even is a problem in your opinion, what do you think Dallas should be doing to address maybe HarryHook's shortcomings right now?
What's strange about what Dallas is running right now is that HarryHook has never really been a standout Mercy player. And we saw that in Stage 1, where Dallas looked, comparably weaker than what we expected them to coming into, the inaugural season in Stage 1. They did look very shaken on this meta. What was interesting is what they decided to kind of change coming into Stage 2 with adding Rascal, with adding AKM, and bringing XQC back into the fold, or allowing, now that he's allowed to come back into the fold. What's interesting is that because he's never really been a, standout Mercy player, he has most of his career play time played on Lucio, and he's been, fairly, I would say, world-class at it. It's surprising to me that Rascal has seen less play. Now, I know this question was about HarryHook and what Dallas can do to address that, but I think the biggest thing I think they could do to address his questionable Mercy play, which I don't necessarily think that it's too terribly questionable, I just don't know exactly what the concept is behind running the boosted Soldier with AKM, or even boosting Custa on Zen. I think it's just a little bit one-dimensional for my taste, but like I said, I think that putting Rascal into the starting roster a little bit more, I think that frees up HarryHook to be able to play the Lucio in with a fantastic dive composition that I think this team has waiting in the wings. The potential is there. They have a fantastic hit scan. They have a fantastic tank line. It seems like their direction and their calling have been much better now that they have XQC and Custa as mainstays on this roster. So I think the best thing for HarryHook to basically just be swapped off of the Mercy and just let him play Lucio. But that's just my 2 cents.
So on the side of Seoul in this match, who was kind of the big difference maker here?
From what we saw on the broadcast, I think many people start to point fingers at Munchkin and how he stepped up within stage 2. Week 1, we started to see a decline coming out of Fleta, and I'm a very big proponent of him being one of the best, if not the best player in the league right now. But I'm not too proud of my my prediction to say that he has been underperforming for me. I really think he has. Little misplays here and there, very uncharacteristic, small mispositioning errors, very questionable ult usage. Just overall, he looks like he's been off his game quite a bit. That being said, there hasn't been a shortage of players stepping up. We've seen, like I've written, the support line becoming incredibly more comfortable on what picks they're playing. Although Jaehong has adopted this very interesting flank Zenyatta style, where at times at the end of his Transcendence, he'll decide to push through the team and surprise them with a Zenyatta in their backline and play Assassin Monk, which works out sometimes, and other times he feeds like nobody's business. But most of the time it ends up working out for them, which is great. But to kind of mark an MVP for this Seoul roster coming into stage 2, I do think it's been a team effort. I think Toby has been an incredible anchor, like he always has been. He's unshakable, he's unmoving. Same with Zinba. They're the impenetrable fortress for this Seoul team. But again, that doesn't go without saying that Munchkin and Jaehong have had their clutch moments. They've really stepped up and kind of filled in for the weaknesses that other players might have.
Let's talk about the Shock versus Valiant game. Let's start with the Shock, and I actually want to talk about kind of single out another player, and that's Nomy. When it comes to the Shock, we see a lot of fingers kind of pointed at Nomy as one of the weak links for the squad. Do you think that Nomy is an Overwatch League caliber tank?
That's a hard question, because I think it's really difficult to judge tank players, because I believe that they are one of the biggest. I think they're the biggest kind of leaning post to a team. And what I mean by that, right, is that they are kind of the style of the team. They're the forefront in every sense of the word, literal and figurative, right? If your tanks don't necessarily fit into the style of your team, they're not gonna, it's trying to smash a square peg in a circle hole, right? It is going to be a little bit jarring. Is that the case? It's hard to tell, really, because you don't have a huge hero pool to choose from, especially with tanks right now. In stage 2, it is a little bit bigger. Now that we have a little bit more Reinhardt being played, Orisa is being played a little bit more. That being said, he is probably known more for his... I think he's probably known more for his Reinhardt, if I was to ask him, and I have spoken to him before. That being said, I think having the chance to speak with him, I think he's incredibly driven. I think he's incredibly hardworking. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So if you do get a chance, please say hello to him. But is he an Owl caliber tank? I think he is. I just think this team needs to figure out exactly what they want to do with him, and they need to refine down their overall strategy, because it seems like there's too much happening all at once, where I think that if you slow things down and really give very clear and concise direction for him, I think that would benefit him a lot more. That being said, I think that Shock have improved immensely coming into stage 2. Look at their game with Seoul. Look at their game with Los Angeles Valiant. It's looked much, much better. And I think he's looked progressively better and better. So I think that he is an Owl caliber tank. But, to be fair, he is comparably weaker to a lot of his peers in the pool of tanks in Overwatch League. I think that's just the truth.
So another player question for you, and that's Kariv. Kariv originally came in playing in the support role, and now we're seeing him take over one of the DPS roles. How do you think he's been transitioning so far to his perhaps new role?
Something that a lot of people tend to forget is that Kariv did play a fair share of flex, and I'm going to say just flex, because he's just very he has just a wide hero pool and does lots of very odd things that most players tend not to. And by that I mean like play and kind of swap roles quite fluidly. He did come from the team Mighty AOD back in Korea. funnily enough, he is now teaming with some of the Rogue members that he had the chance to style on. I'll go ahead and say it. That he played incredibly well on the DPS and did incredibly dirty things to them on Widowmaker. We can remember their Gibraltar match. I think it was Mighty AOD versus Rogue, Apex Season 3. Don't quote me. He goes off and does some crazy nutty stuff on the Widowmaker coming straight out of the gate. Right out of spawn on attack. He just pops off and does some crazy stuff. That being said, he's had experience on flex support, main support, flex DPS, hit scan DPS. Like he has quite the repertoire of things that he can play. So I think that this has been not a long time coming, but I think this is, another day in the park for him. Not to mention, who knows, maybe LA Valiant has been scrimming with them quite heavily on DPS, and we never had the chance to know it. That being said, to actually directly answer your question, I think he's looked fantastic. Does it surprise me that he looks fantastic? Not so much. It's surprising that somebody can scrim or assumedly scrim flex support for so long and step right back into a flex tank and a flex DPS role and excel. I think that's surprising, but to see him return to that level isn't really that surprising to me. I think he's shown in the past that he is incredibly talented, and it's definitely shown today.
My thanks to Volamel for stopping by on the show today. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Volamel. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be breaking down tonight's matches, which includes, starting at 4 p.m. Pacific time, the Florida Mayhem taking on the London Spitfire, the Houston Outlaws taking on the Philadelphia Fusion, and then we round out the night with the New York Excelsior taking on the Boston Uprising. If you like the show, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. We're almost to 1,500 subscribers. iTunes or your podcast app of choice so you don't miss future episodes. And of course, you can always watch or listen to the show on the front page of winstonslab.com. You can find links to everything over at overwatchleaguedaily.com as well. And of course, if you have questions or comments for the show, please email me, overwatchleaguedaily@gmail.com. Thanks again to Volamel for stopping by. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Overwatch League Daily.